Wow, so hey, good evening. I'm Brian with Anthony Restoration, and I want to talk to you about secondary water damage. You're saying, well, what's secondary? I just have water damage. I just have water, it's dripping. Well, that's typically called primary water damage. So, like, where was the source or what was the location where the leak was identified and the water is coming from that source and spilling out? Now, secondary water damage is something that happens, usually has a history of the building. It can be workmanship, it can just be old valves. There's a million reasons why something could drip once we're already in there. So, for instance, even tonight, we had attached a vanity. We checked, didn't see any water. However, when those open valves started to heat up, water started to drip out. Not a lot, just a little bit. And I always say if it's about the size of your that's a good secondary. If it's flowing throughout your house, it can happen, and we're prepared for it, and we hope that it doesn't happen. But there are some homes where the CPVC is really brittle, and I know plumbers are like, oh my God, they are brittle, and they're breaking all the time, even if you barely touch it, or you're trying to put a valve on or something like that. So these things can exist in homes. They're kind of normal. They're normal in water damages, but it's something to just know can happen. Like, wow, a secondary water damage could happen. Could I have multiple secondaries? Yes, you could. We saw secondary water damage from a roof leak. So we were actually handling a dishwasher leak and noticed there was still water pouring in through one corner of their home. It was raining outside. And I was like, that has nothing to do with this issue. And some people will say, well, that's a whole nother loss. And I'll say, well, if it's in my space or it's close to where we are, we should be able to find it, detect it, and then provide some extra value to customers so they don't run into a whole nother rebuild later for something that could have been located when we were there. So there's a secondary water damage just happens. Old valves, there's secondary water damage. You just find it while you're in there. Trying to think if there's any other water damages that have happened. We've seen pet bowls, and pet bowls will leak, and then we're like, our sensors will be like, wait, why is it wet here? How is this possible? And then we asked, did you have a dog in here with a pet bowl? And sure enough, yes. And were they inside today? And then, yes, some questions. You go, okay. So sometimes it's tiny little things, but if it happens in your home, what should you do? All right, so some tips. So if it's light, drip, very small, get a Rubbermaid container, get anything that can go underneath it, a trash can, and capture the water. If it is rapidly filling up, turn your water off. And you may want to turn it off anyway. If it is just absolutely gushing, you have got to turn your main water off right away. So those things can happen. We've seen that. And get to the main, turn it off, and then the water will drip out, it'll be dried, and then you move on. So secondary water damage, it's a thing, it happens. It's not an everyday thing, but I would say during the course of water damages, it happens, and we're prepared for that. And I think that a professional water damage company should be able to catch these things or respond and fix those issues right away, to keep them from becoming another disaster or lengthening their mitigation. All right. Have a great evening. Thank you for Anthony Restoration.